What's up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. It's September 5th, 2019. It's Thursday evening. These are the picks and predictions against the spread for the weekend of September the 7th, 2019. We don't have any games on tonight as far as college football goes. We just got the Bears and the Packers playing. Packers are up on the Bears 7-3 right now. All these games are either Friday or Saturday, and most of them are on Saturday this week, so we're going to get right into it. Last week, Carolina Jackpot finished up with a record of 18-18 against the spread. I was 18-17, then missed the Louisville Notre Dame pick just barely on Monday night. Picked the Irish to cover the spread. They almost did. Louisville, man, looked a lot better than they did last year, man. I'm telling you what, looked like a totally different team out there. Just couldn't quite get it done defensively. But I think there's some bright times ahead for those guys. A lot of craziness last week, a lot of turmoil. So with 18-18 record against the spread, I'm not really hating it. I could have done a lot worse. There were some upsets out there that you just would not have figured at all. So the Tennessee loss was unexplicable. My South Carolina Gamecocks losing, another one that was ridiculous. So we're going to get right into week number 2 and see what we got going on. We have Wake Forest on the road at Rice. Wake Forest is laying 19 points on the road at Rice. Last week, Wake survived against a revamped Utah State team. I didn't see that one coming. I thought Wake would have won by a little more there with a revamped offense, or a replenished offense, I should say, at Utah State. With basically Jordan Love, the only returning player. But it was a dogfight, and they did win that game by 3 points. Of course, Rice and Army, Rice kept the game was really close. They ended up losing 14-7 at Army. So you got to wonder what happened there. And this game last year, Wake Forest won easily 56-24. Rice is not a good football team, okay? There is no way that they are only 7 points worse than Army. There's not. I got to think that last week that Army was, number one, adjusting to the loss of their most productive running back, Woolfolk. And also, I don't think that Army showed us everything they have, because they got a big game this week against Michigan in the Big House. They've been looking forward to this one probably ever since they lost that game to Oklahoma in overtime last year. Another spot, Wake Forest, I think that they can get some stuff going. Jamie Newman, quarterback, really good player. Matt Colburn, the running back, I think will have a good day against Rice. The defense, I do not think is very good, despite what happened last week. I'm going to take Wake Forest to cover the spread here at Rice. I think that kind of restore order a little bit. Rice looked good last week, but back to normal this week. Another interesting one, Marshall on the road at Boise State. This is a Friday night game. These guys have not met since the 1994 Division I AA playoff semifinal game. Marshall last week, of course, won 56-17 over VMI, an FCS school that they played everyone, literally emptied the bench, and didn't have to show a lot there. Put up 600 yards of offense. Quarterback Isaiah Green tossed 4 touchdown passes. Of course, Boise with the come from behind 36-31 win over Florida State in Tallahassee. Their freshman quarterback Hank Backmeyer, 417 yards, and you thought that after the Brett Rippon kid graduated after last year, they were going to fall off there. I don't know, not so much. They also rushed for 217 yards. Marshall's got a good, solid defense. This environment, I think, may be a little bit too much for them. But this is a hard one. I mean, I would not play this one. But just situationally, looking at where this game is being played at, you got to think Boise's coming off of a pretty big high there. This is one of their bigger wins against a bigger name school that they've had in a while. Of course, last year had a chance to do it against Oklahoma State. They kind of blew that one. So this year, a little bit of redemption for Boise. I think that they will probably cover here against Marshall. I could see this maybe a 2-touchdown win for Boise, but not at all confident in this one. That's not one that I'm really confident about. So I'm going to do something new, though. I'm going to put a question mark there. That's a toughie. Vanderbilt on the road at Purdue. This is not a tough one for me. Vanderbilt losing 30-6 to Georgia last Saturday night. Not shameful. Not a bad performance really by Vanderbilt. They got some good skill players there. The running back Keyshawn Vaughn, wide receiver Kalijah Lipscomb, some of the better ones in the SEC. Jared Pinckney, the tight end, another good player. I didn't really get a chance to be on Showcase on Saturday night. Georgia, number 3 ranked team in the country, just basically shut all those guys down, held them to 2 field goals. The big story here will be what kind of player we're going to get from their quarterback, Riley Neal. Purdue went on the road. They were up 24-7 on Nevada on the road, and then I don't know what happened. I don't know if the altitude or just what got to them, or they just thought they had the game in the bag. But they allowed Nevada to come back on them, and then a true freshman field goal kicker, he nailed like a 58-yard field goal at the end of that game. I cannot respect the defense of any Big Ten team that lets Nevada come from down 17 points on them at the beginning of the fourth quarter, mind you, and come back and win. I just can't. This will be the second year in a row that Vanderbilt has gone to the Midwest. Last year, much tougher test, went to Notre Dame, just barely lost that game. I think they're going to be able to get some things going on offense here against Purdue. Not a really physical team at all, much the contrast to what they played last week with Georgia. I look for Vandy to cover the spread, and I think the Commodores probably win this game outright. West Virginia, the Mountaineers, going on the road, 13.5-point underdogs at Missouri. Of course, Missouri lost to Wyoming last week. In a game, the final score was not really indicative of how big of a margin there was there. I mean, Wyoming just ran the ball down Missouri's throat. I mean, really, just a real contrast to what they've been lately. Of course, West Virginia, 20-13 win over James Madison. A lot of people looking at that, kind of scratching their head. They really couldn't get anything going offensively. But James Madison, I mean, we're not talking about a slouch here. In the FCS, it's just like FBS. There are good FBS teams. There are really good ones. There are mediocre ones, and there are terrible ones. Same thing in FCS. James Madison is a really good, they are an elite level FCS school, ranked number 2. It was a 7-point spread, West Virginia, so they pushed that and won 2013. You just couldn't get a lot going offensively against James Madison, and the Dukes rushed for almost 200 yards against that West Virginia defense. Missouri was not really able to run the ball on Wyoming. So you got to think they're going to be able to run the ball against West Virginia. You got a really solid back, Larry Roundtree the third. So I think that him and Kelly Bryant, I think that these guys are going to get going a little bit here and snap out of the funk that they were in last week. Everybody's, kind of down on West Virginia this year because of the loss of Will Greer, the loss of so many skill position players, especially in that wide receiving core. This is just, this is a tough spot, 13.5 points. I think that the Missouri Tigers cover the spread here. Despite the fact Missouri has generally been starting off slow, but I just think that West Virginia defense is just a little vulnerable and just ready to be picked on by Missouri. They should have had a coming out party last week, and they did somewhat. This week they'll have the coming out party and get the win. Here's another tough one. A lot of people kind of can't seem to make up their mind on this one. BYU on the road at Tennessee. Tennessee laying 3.5 at home to the visiting Cougars. Of course, BYU played last Thursday night. Holy War lost 30-12 to Utah. The game was close at the beginning. Utah kind of pulled away from them down the stretch. Gave up a lot of rushing yards to Utah. So it should be a team that Tennessee can perhaps move the ball against. Second game in a row at home. Tennessee, they just cannot afford to lose this game. And you got to look. Last week they played Georgia State, and it wasn't just a fluky win. I mean, they got dominated by Georgia State. Georgia State was up on them by 15 points in the fourth quarter. They looked really bad and got dominated. BYU, after playing sluggish in that rivalry game, I think is also going to be out to make some kind of statement and make up for that. They've got 2 days rest on the Vols. It's a long trip for them. Tennessee, I look for Jeremy Pruitt, and make no bones about it, he is not. I was thinking, that him and Muschamp are around the same level. No, I think Pruitt may be a little bit worse than Muschamp. Just a little bit, not a lot. I'm going to take Tennessee here. I'm going to say it. I'm going to take them to cover the spread. I think they may win this game by about a touchdown. If they let me down, I don't know how much longer I can continue going with them. And I want to put a question mark on that one as well. That's another one that I'm not very confident on. But it's a rebound spot. I'll look for Tennessee to get a win here at home. My paper kind of split up a little bit. So we have Ohio going on the road to take on Pittsburgh. Ohio out of the MAC. Pittsburgh, the Panthers laying 5.5 at home against the Bobcats. Of course, last week, Pittsburgh 30-14 losers to Virginia, a team that picked by most to win the ACC Coastal Division. I think they definitely look better than anybody in the ACC Coastal Division this past weekend, except for maybe North Carolina. Pitt struggled against Virginia. They had to throw the ball because they've lost two of their two running backs last year. They had one over 1,000 yards apiece. So they're out of their element a little bit there with Kenny Pickett. He kind of struggled throwing the ball. That Ohio defense, I think, is going to be solid. They're favored to win the MAC East. Last week, just kind of a ho-hum victory at home against Rhode Island quarterback Nathan Rourke. A very solid player that a lot of people don't know about. Pittsburgh looking to rebound, second game in a row at home. Didn't play particularly well against Virginia. This is another tough spot. But Ohio is a team that every year it seems like they take on an FCS school, and they just really can't get it done. Pittsburgh is a team that struggled in the past with some lower-level opponents, not necessarily losing to them, but just barely beating them. Youngstown State a couple years ago just kind of comes to mind. It's just kind of the way that program is. I'm going to look for Ohio U to cover the spread in this game, and I think that they may pull the upset. Take a look at that one. Whoops. Excuse me. I messed up. Sorry, guys. That one's on a different page. Ohio. That's what I'm looking for there to cover the spread, not Pittsburgh. Take the Bobcats in that game. Syracuse on the road at Maryland. Matchup of current ACC team versus former ACC team. I'm kind of wondering about why these guys don't play a little bit more often. They were both pretty impressive week one. Maryland, what did they win, like 60 or 79-0, I think it was. It's Howard. They held him to 68 yards of total offense. Quarterback Joshua Jackson, 4 touchdown passes. Last week, Syracuse with a 24-0 win on the road against Liberty. Surprised me a little bit that Liberty couldn't put any points on the board. I don't know how much the fact that their head coach, Hugh Freeze, was like that. He was actually like laying in like a makeshift hospital bed in the press box calling plays. He had some kind of back surgery which has kind of put him down, but not down for the count. I mean, he's still coaching, but you got to think he can't be as effective like that. But they got shut out. Shutout win there for Syracuse. Their quarterback, DeVito, didn't look great against Liberty, threw 2 interceptions. I like Maryland's skill position players. I think it's a big spot for them. Mike Locksley, this is his dream job. This is a job that he has wanted ever since he got into coaching. Of course, he's from Towson up there in Maryland, not very far from the University of Maryland. I look for them to come out and play really well this week, have kind of a coming out party, and I think they're going to take care of business and beat Syracuse at home or cover the spread there. I'm still just not totally sold on Syracuse and this new quarterback. Let's take Maryland at home to win that game and cover. Army at Michigan. This is a tough one. Michigan looked a little bit sluggish last week against Middle Tennessee State. They finally ended up winning the game 40-21. They pulled away in the second half. They were only up 27-14 at the half. Army not looking too great against Rice, but as I stated earlier in this video, I think they were holding back a little bit because they knew that Rice was a terrible team, and they weren't going to have to put forth a lot of effort to be able to get a victory there. They were missing those 2 running backs from last year. Don't overreact to their slow start there. Don't overreact to Michigan's slow start either. They're a good team as well. It'll be interesting to see how Army plays in this game defensively against Shea Patterson. Did a good job last year of totally shut down Kyler Murray with Oklahoma, but held him in check long enough. Their offense, Army's offense, is their best defense. Just chewing up clock, and some of these guys are just great skill position players that they play against. Sometimes just aren't able to get anything going. I think the Army is going to make a statement here. I don't think they're going to win this game. I just don't think they have the Jimmies or the Joes to knock Michigan off. I look for the Wolverines to go 2-0 here, and Army to drop to 1-1. But I think that they're going to keep this one closer than a lot of people expect and cover the spread there against Michigan. Interesting matchup. And just power football on power football. I mean, just two blue collar teams just kind of slugging it out here. It should be a good game and a fun one to watch. All right, staying with the eastern side of the Big Ten there, we have Cincinnati, another non-Power 5 school with an impressive resume going on the road, taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's a big matchup in the state of Ohio. Cincinnati, of course, last week, 24-14 winner over UCLA on Thursday night. So they got 2 extra days on Ohio State, actually, who played on Saturday. Of course, Ohio State, look, it's an effortless win, really, against Florida Atlantic. I mean, they had run the score up after the end of the first quarter. I think it was like 21-0. Justin Fields tossed 4 touchdown passes. They just really coasted home the rest of the way. Cincinnati, they did get the win against UCLA. They don't buy too much into that. They looked okay doing it. They didn't look great. They turned the ball over some, thwarted a scoring drive deep in UCLA territory there towards the end of the first half. They threw an interception, and UCLA ran it back almost to midfield. UCLA was just not a very good team at all. I expected a lot better out of them this year, and I don't know if we're going to see it or not. I mean, their quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he struggled. It looked terrible last week against Cincinnati. So I would not buy a whole lot into that game. I think Cincinnati is a really good team, but UCLA, no improvement from last year to this year as far as playing Cincinnati goes. So only a 16-point line here. Ohio State, just a ton of talent here. Justin Fields and crew he has a bevy of wide receivers he can choose from to throw that ball to. They'll do enough on defense to hold Cincinnati in check. And that quarterback, Desmond Ridder, and of course their running back, who did some good things against UCLA, but you're not playing UCLA here. I'm going to look for Ohio State to cover the number here. Probably win by 3 to 4 touchdowns if I had my guess. I think Cincinnati will keep it close for a while, just on emotion and energy alone. But look for Ohio State to pull ahead in that one and win fairly comfortably by the end of the game. Rutgers on the road at Iowa. Rutgers outscored UMass last week 41-7, and actually had fallen behind 14-0 at one point in that game. Rutgers still allowed 200 yards rushing to UMass, which is not a good thing. I mean, you got to look at these big wins, but you kind of look at these stats also and see what took place there. 200 yards rushing to a UMass team, it's not very good. And I'm just not convinced that their defense is any good. Rutgers had a good week last week. Their running back had, 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game. Not a tough test, though, to get prepared for Big Ten play. Iowa, of course, with a 38-14 win over Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is definitely a better team than UMass. And then going on the road, this 20 points are right under that 3-touchdown margin there. Iowa, with Nate Stanley back, I think he's a senior quarterback this year, have all the potential to actually start putting up some points this year. You're normally a lower scoring team. This is a conference game also, which adds a little bit of an element to it there. I'm going to look for Iowa to cover the spread here. Would not surprise me at all to possibly see Rutgers keep this one somewhat close for a while. Last year, they played the Big Ten teams tougher than they played Buffalo or Kansas. 2 teams they got blown out by. One, not even a Power 5 school. One, probably the worst Power 5 team in the country. So Rutgers still looking up there a little bit, but I think Iowa's got a little bit too much for them in this one. South Florida on the road at Georgia Tech. Last year, South Florida won this game at home, but it looks to me like South Florida's taken yet another step back. Last year, I think they lost like 7 games in a row to end the season. Charlie Strong kind of struggling there a little bit. Georgia Tech, of course, overwhelmed by Clemson 52-14 in the opener last week on Thursday, which I think everybody saw coming. They did have a few bright spots. So their running back Jordan Mason rushed for 72 yards, got a little bit of chunks of yardage against that retooled Clemson front seven. South Florida shut out 39-0 against Wisconsin. Just couldn't get anything going at all. Georgia Tech still runs the ball fairly well. Their passing game is non-existent. But I don't know that they're going to need a solid passing game here to win this game against South Florida. That defense was just shot last week, and I think that it's going to take them a while to regroup there. I think that Georgia Tech gets a home win here, and I think they cover the spread against South Florida, maybe in the 10 to 14 point range. It's not going to be a dominant win because I don't think Georgia Tech's just really built to put up a lot of points right now. But look for the Yellow Jackets to take the victory there over South Florida. Just a struggling football team. I don't know if Georgia Tech will win any games in the ACC this year, but I do think they get the victory here on Saturday against South Florida. Texas A&M at Clemson. Big game Saturday afternoon. 3:30 game. I already talked about this one in a separate video. I try not to be biased when I'm picking these games because, I mean, that does you no good. you have to stay objective when you're trying to pick these things. Of course, you all know I don't like Clemson. Never have, never will. I'm a big old Gamecock at heart, and I just can't stand these guys. But you can't deny what they got going on there. I don't think that they showed us everything that they have against Georgia Tech last week. I think Dabo probably has a few or a lot of tricks still left up his sleeve there. Things that I think he will unveil a little bit more against A&M. They had 2 running backs over 100 yards, which was the big question, was who's going to replace Travion Williams. But they played Texas State. So, how much can we really figure out from that? Is that really a huge litmus test as to who they are right now? Kellen Mond looked good, as he has for quite a few games in a row now. Trevor Lawrence was a little bit shaky last week, a couple of interceptions. But it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. He's just a guy. He is going to make a few mistakes here and there. But Travis Etienne more than made up for it, going over 200 yards. This guy, just with the burst off the line of scrimmage, is just unbelievable. A lot of people are picking Texas A&M to cover the spread here, but they can't tell me why. They can't tell me why, and until I see it, I'm just not believing that. Clemson is really tough at home. They put up a lot of points at home. They rarely get challenged at home. It's been, last year against Syracuse, kind of got challenged at home. Other than that, you got to go back several years to find where they, didn't perform well at home. This is a big-time matchup. It's not prime time, but it might as well be. Another one where they have a chance to put another feather in their cap against an SEC team that's improving, but I don't think they're where they exactly want to be just yet. I'm taking the Tigers to cover the spread here. This one's 17.5 points, and it's went down to about 17 since I made this out. I'm taking the Tigers in this game, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think you can't go wrong picking Clemson. Okay, you just can't. I'm going to take the Tigers in that game to cover the spread. I think Trevor Lawrence will more than make up for the 2 interceptions last week, and I think T. Higgins and Justin Ross will catch a few passes. Here's an interesting battle here. Illinois at UConn. Illinois looked impressive last week. It's been a long time since we said that. 42-3 win over Akron. Tough team, starting out with a new head coach. Last year they struggled with Kent State in their opener, if you'll remember that. I think they won that game 24-21 or something like that. Reggie Corbin, their running back, had a great day against Akron running the ball. UConn, this is just a bad football team. This is a bad football team. 24-21 win at home against Wagner, an FCS school, and not a very good one. I can't find any bright spots here for UConn. This team just gave up an insane number of points last year. Illinois, look at how many they scored last week. 39-point win against Akron. Of course, not a Power 5 school. They could eclipse that total this week. I'm taking Illinois on the road at 20.5 points. And this is going to be one of my lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels picks. I believe that Illinois is going to beat down UConn. 20.5 is not near enough points there. Take that one as one Carolina jackpot. Calls a guarantee on. Nebraska on the road at Colorado. This is an interesting game. Colorado, what did they win? Was it 52-31 against Colorado State? Kind of had to pull away in the second half. It was a really close game, just back and forth the entire first half. Nebraska struggled to put up points, struggled to put South Alabama. Well, they didn't really struggle to put them away. They struggled to pull away from them. I should say. Ended up winning 35-21. Taylor Martinez didn't look great. Colorado, for what they are, we thought Nebraska was the better team. With Martinez and what he brings to the table. But I'm starting to just wonder, even after watching that in just one game, if it's all just Adrian Martinez. I think I called him Taylor Martinez a few minutes ago. If I did, I apologize. I just had that guy's name stuck in my head. He was their quarterback there when South Carolina played him a few years ago. Adrian, Martinez. Is that just the only offense they've got there? Because you just got to wonder. Colorado, I like the quarterback. Steven Montez and LaVista Chenault. That's one of the best wide receivers in the country that nobody really knows about. Last year, you saw Colorado take Nebraska down in Lincoln. This is a big-time spot for Nebraska here. If they're going to turn the corner this year, people are picking them to go 8-4, 9-3. Some people out there that I've seen, and there's not many of them, are picking them to go to the playoffs. Didn't look like a playoff caliber team there, and this is a very tough spot. They've got something to prove here. But Colorado started out really hot last year. They're the home underdog. I'm going to take Colorado in this game. Just based off last week's performance, I just have to. I don't think that there is that much difference between these two teams right now. I really don't. They've got a new head coach there, Mel Tucker. They're rejuvenated a little bit, looking to do some things, make a move there in the Pac-12 South. A lot of people are leaving them out for dead this year, so Colorado's definitely going to finish in the last place. Let's take Colorado to cover the spread here, and this is one that I'm not that confident about. I'm confident enough to pick it. New Mexico State, is laying 55 points, or is 55-point underdogs, on the road at Alabama. That is crazy. Well, of course, last week, they lost to Washington State 59-7. Alabama, of course, with a slow start. Then after they reinserted some of those starters that weren't allowed to play the first quarter, 42-3, effortless win over Duke. New Mexico State got up 5 touchdowns to the new Washington State quarterback, the one that replaced Mr. Mustache. This is his new mustache. That's a lot of points to cover, though, isn't it? Alabama, I think Nick Saban's going to, I don't think he showed everything that he has last week against Duke. I mean, these guys are just right this week, or last week, this week we're going into right now, they're not showing what they've got. They've got a SEC game next week on the road at the Gamecocks, which, I had some hopes for that one at one point in time, but I don't really have many right now, despite some of the things that have happened the past week or so, along with losing North Carolina. I think Alabama pulls the starters early here, maybe before halftime, and I think New Mexico State actually covers the spread here. I can see a 52, maybe another 52-7 loss. Maybe a 59-7 loss, which still wouldn't cover the number. Poor New Mexico State they're not scared, are they? Maybe they just want a big payday. 2 really good Power 5 programs in a row that they travel to, and they'll take another thumping. UCF, talking about on the road at Florida Atlantic. They're 10.5-point favorites there. And this is one of those games that, for some reason, it seems like they want you to take this one. They want you to take UCF here. For some reason, 10.5 points is just not enough to me. From what we've seen from UCF the past few years, and only a 10.5-point favorite on the road at Florida Atlantic. But Florida Atlantic, I think, is a team that wants to be UCF, but they're not. They don't have the talent. They had that one really good season in 2017. and everybody was putting Lane Kiffin maybe on a short list to get another big time job. And now he's just a guy. They're nothing special. Remember last year they were supposed to challenge Oklahoma. All of us thought that they were going to challenge Oklahoma. We overreacted to that big year they had in 2017 where they won like 10 games and went to the Boca Raton Bowl or something, and they just absolutely got blown out. Last week, score wasn't as bad against Ohio State, but Ohio State just put that thing on cruise control after halftime. I'm taking the bait here. UCF 62-0 winners last week against Florida A&M. That game was 48-0 at halftime. I'm taking the Knights in this game. Brandon Wimbush looked good, didn't he? As a quarterback there, and Adrian Killens, the running back. These guys are going to take an easy victory on the road at Florida Atlantic. Eastern Michigan versus Kentucky. Kentucky beat Toledo last week, 38-24. Not exactly huge. Their quarterback Terry Wilson played well in that game, which everyone has said going into this season that Terry Wilson going to have to play a lot better in 2019 than he did in 2018 because he doesn't have Benny Snell back there anymore to run the ball. Coastal Carolina, the opponent for Eastern Michigan last week, threw 4 interceptions. Eastern Michigan could have actually lost that game. I was been a little bit high on Eastern Michigan the past few years. They've had a tough team. Just seeing that stat and seeing how close they were against Coastal Carolina, which really was not a good team at all last year. Eastern Michigan went on the road there. Just barely pulled out a victory. Kentucky ended up winning by 14 against Toledo. I think Toledo's a better team than Eastern Michigan is. And the Wildcats, I'm going to look to cover the spread here against Eastern Michigan and get a pretty decent win there at home. Here's an interesting one. Tulane at Auburn. I don't know how long it's been since the last time these guys played. I did not research this one, but Tulane and Auburn were at one point in time rivals in the SEC. Auburn, of course, last week, 27-21, really big win over Oregon. Justin Herbert, just was not able to really get it going against that Auburn defense. But still, they were ahead 21-20 till very late in the fourth quarter. They allowed Bo Nix to drive the team down. Kind of really didn't manage the clock very well there inside the last minute or so of that football game. Tulane looked very good, 42-14 win at home against FIU, and I think that was a 3-point line in that game. We thought that FIU could have been possibly the best team on that side of Conference USA, and they just got blown out by Tulane. That quarterback, Justin McMillan, was 14 of 18, 199 yards, very good, elusive, very shifty runner. This is a game that, Auburn, I think breathes a sigh of relief after that game against Oregon. They're kind of resting on that, being 1-0. Tulane is another team that got something to prove. They kind of proved it last week, but I don't think that they feel like probably that they're on anybody's radar just because they beat up on FIU. A lot of people that don't really study the game probably don't even know a whole lot about FIU, the casual fan, and how good they are. I am going to take Tulane in this game to cover the spread. Auburn is kind of, in the past, kind of struggled against some teams like this. Maybe a Southern Miss, one of those schools from that area of the South down there that's not really a Power 5 school that they don't really take seriously. I'm looking for Tulane to cover the spread here. I think they're going to play well. I think Justin McMillan, has a good day, as good as he possibly can against that staunch Auburn defense. And I think they keep this one relatively close until, towards the end of the third quarter, they may pull away a little bit. But look for Tulane to play well there. And Cover the spread. Okay. Another page division here. We got Arkansas on the road at Ole Miss. They are 6.5 point underdogs against Ole Miss, a team that lost last week 15-10 on the road at Memphis. It really wasn't an upset. So Memphis was favored in that game. Arkansas with a 20-14 win over FCS team Portland State at home. But they, that's not a very impressive score. They still gained 400 yards of offense against Portland State. They just couldn't get it in the end zone. Ole Miss with a 15-10 loss to a team that's got a bad defense traditionally in Memphis. Just couldn't get anything going there. Arkansas, their SEC games last year, if you look at some of their SEC games down the stretch, they kept some games close that they didn't have any business keeping close. The Texas A&M game was a one-touchdown game. I believe the LSU game last year for Arkansas was a one-touchdown game. Chad Morris has been rebuilding this program. It's been slow. They haven't had a lot of success so far. I think they finally taste a little bit of success on Saturday, and I think Arkansas, we're just talking about Auburn, Arkansas gets their first SEC win in a while, breaks that streak. They were 0-8 last year in SEC play, and I look for them to cover, and I think they're going to win at Ole Miss on Saturday. I just think there's just more upside for Arkansas. I give them the advantage as far as coaching goes. I give them the advantage at the quarterback position. Ben Hicks has been through it before at SMU, and then the graduate transfer over there to Arkansas they didn't play particularly well last week, but I think they're going to go on the road and get it done this week. Got LSU on the road at Texas Saturday night. This is a huge game. LSU 6.5 point favorites as of this printing against the Longhorns. I think LSU is finally learning how to be a little bit more multidimensional. It's basically always just been a power running team. Hasn't been able to, haven't been very effective throwing the ball in quite some time. Texas last week, relatively easy win against Louisiana Tech, a team that I thought may give them a little bit more problems than what they did. I think that Texas is going to have problems just scoring points in this one. That LSU defense is really staunch, and holding Georgia Southern. I know it's Georgia Southern. It's a non-Power 5 school, but they're returning that quarterback Shea Wertz, a guy who has just ran all over the place on some teams the past couple of years. LSU held those guys to 3 points. I mean, they could not do anything while they put 55 on them. Because of this game being in Austin at nighttime, it's going to be a raucous crowd. It's the biggest game that they've played there in years. This is a tricky pick for me. I think LSU is going to win the game, but it's a tricky pick as far as the line goes. I think it's going to be a close game, maybe a lot closer than it really has any business being. But just looking at what they did last week and how LSU dominated Georgia Southern, which I know Georgia Southern is still not a huge litmus test for how you're going to do against teams like Texas. I've got to kind of join up with everybody else here on this one and take LSU to cover the spread there. I think they're more talented. It's the defense. I mean, Grant Delpit and the rest of those guys on defense, they are salty. And I think Joe Burrow will be able to move the ball through the air against the Texas defense. Of course, they're going to move the ball on the ground as well. Look for LSU here to cover the spread here. It may be just a 7 to 10 point win. It's going to be a close game, but and a good one. This will probably be the best one we've seen thus far this year. But I'll look for them here to cover the spread and win this game. Miami on the road at North Carolina. Last week, North Carolina, true freshman quarterback Sam Howell looked really good against the South Carolina Gamecocks. And, defensively, we didn't play our best ball. But, when I get back and I look at this game a little bit more, I actually watched it again. And the kid played a really good game. He really did. And our defense, despite they did not play that bad of a game. They didn't get the kind of push off the defensive line that I would like for them to have gotten. But North Carolina played very well in that game, especially in the second half. They did the things they needed to. If you want to look back at Miami's game 2 weeks ago against Florida, it was a week early compared to everybody else. But, them and Florida, both teams just made a ton of mistakes. Just a ton of mistakes. Miami's quarterback got sacked a ton. And bottom line, Miami and Florida still had like 8 months to prepare for this game too. Just like everybody else has for week one. 1 week is not going to make that much of a difference as far as 8 weeks go. Or 8 months. So Miami, their redshirt freshman quarterback, Jared Williams, the guy played. He made some mistakes, but he played well for a redshirt freshman against a pretty good defensive unit in Florida. This game, it's a road game for Miami. North Carolina is going to be really hyped up. That crowd that I expect to probably have a sellout crowd there in Kenan Stadium, and Lord knows how long it's been since they've had a sellout crowd there. Probably since 2015 when Larry Fedora's team went 11-1. It's probably the last time they had a sellout there. They're not that far removed from being a really good team at North Carolina, just a few years. And Mac Brown, he's rejuvenated them. These guys are working together. Their defensive coordinator, Jay Bateman, I knew he was going to do good things there. I knew he was, just because of the track record, what he did at Army. I just didn't know that it was going to be this soon. The offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, made a lot of good calls against South Carolina, keeping them off balanced. I think North Carolina covers the spread in this game, and I would not be surprised to see them go 2-0 here. And that's not just because they beat my South Carolina Gamecocks. It's just looking at the way they played. There's some skill there. Miami, a lot of mistakes that first week. They have had a week, though, to perfect that. So that also, I thought about that also coming into play as well. Miami's had a week off to right the ship and fix the miscues and the turnovers and the problem of not being able to protect the quarterback that they had against Florida. But I'm still taking North Carolina in this game to cover the spread in this one. This is a game that is very important to them to start off 1-0 in the ACC. And I think they're going to do it. Minnesota at Fresno. Of course, Minnesota dropped a game last week against FCS team South Dakota State. Pretty good FCS team at that, but still an FCS team. They're on the road at Fresno. They won this game last year at home. I think they're going to win it again. That quarterback, Marcus McMaryion, who really had things going for Fresno last year, and then they almost won the Mountain West. Just barely lost that one to Boise. I think that Minnesota rebounds here. Minnesota's got some good skill players. I think they got the coaching advantage here in this game, and I think they go on the road and get that win, and even the record up at 1-1. Stanford on the road at USC. Stanford is a 1-point underdog to USC, which is, I can't really quite understand that one, knowing that USC's quarterback JT Daniels is actually going to be out for the year. KJ Costello for Stanford, he may play. He left the game against Northwestern with a concussion. They ended up winning that game by 10 points. So had Costello remained in that game, would the margin have been wider? I don't really know. USC won by 8 points last week against Fresno State, the team we were just talking about. hard to pick. This is a hard one to judge, a hard one to pick on. I still like Stanford a lot, and I think they've got the coaching advantage here too with David Shaw. I think that they're going to win that game. I really don't understand why they're an underdog in it to USC, especially with as bad as USC's been the past year or so. But take Stanford in that game. Cal on the road at Washington. Washington 13.5-point favorites at home against Cal. Of course, last week, Jacob Eason, glad to see him coming out there and doing the job that he did last week. He tossed for a ton of yards against an Eastern Washington team, that another FCS team, a really good one. Cal struggled with their FCS opponent, UC Davis. They've been decent on defense in the past. Not in this one, though. I think Washington is going to put some points up on the board in this game with Eason. They may be the best team in the Pac-12 North, actually. I thought it was going to be Oregon. Not really sold on Oregon as much now after that loss to Auburn week 1. Take Washington here, get an easy win at home against Cal to cover the spread. And then finally, another one, a fun game on Sunday. I'll make sure that I can watch this one if at all possible. Oregon State travels to Hawaii. Hawaii 45-38 win in week 0 against the Arizona Wildcats, who came up just a yard short, being able to tie that ball game up. Oregon State, some struggles the past few years, just to put it mildly. But they looked better offensively last week. They looked better against Oklahoma State, a team that I figured would easily cover the 15-point spread that they had, and they barely did. They barely covered that 15-point spread against Oregon State. In fact, I think they won only by 16 points. They've been doing better offensively here under head coach Jonathan Smith. They go on the road to Hawaii. Hawaii 6.5-point favorites there. I think Oregon State covers the spread here, and I believe that they probably get this win. For all the good that they did against Arizona, that Cole McDonald, I mean, that guy tossed, like 4 interceptions against Arizona, and really should have been about 6. I mean, one of them was dropped, and one of them was caught out of bounds over by the sideline, which that was a pick too. He should have had like 6 interceptions. I mean, he was tossing the ball all over the place, which some of them were landing in the hand of his receivers. The Oregon State just looked a lot better last week against Oklahoma State. I'm not saying I'm ultra impressed with them. I'm not saying that I think they're a contender in the Pac-12 North by any means, but I could see them getting a couple of Pac-12 victories this year. And I think they go on the road and get the win over Hawaii. They're favored here in this game. Maybe a bit of an overreaction to that win over Arizona. So those are Carolina Jackpots picks and predictions against the spread for week number 2. Had some tough ones to pick here, and hopefully we were able to pull some out, and we'll get back over the 500 mark this week, starting out at 18-18 in week 1. Let's see what we can do here in week number 2. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like these, if you like the picks against the spread, I can recommend. There's a lot of different channels out here that do it. Check out Bobby Durkin's YouTube channel. Check out Uncle Lou. I'm sure everybody knows who Uncle Lou is. If you don't, go check out Uncle Lou. Check out the Gridiron Expert. There's just a bevy of good college football YouTubers out there who make some excellent videos. So if you enjoyed this one, please hit it with the thumbs up. The thumbs up button, giving me a like, that really helps me get my video pushed out there a little bit. Share it, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you share things on social media that you like, please do so. It helps me out tremendously. And I do appreciate you guys watching, and I will see y'all next week. Go Gamecocks. And Fire Coach Boom. I'll see y'all later. Peace, and I'm out.